What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live here on a Thursday. This week, we're streaming on a Thursday, but in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be streaming on a Wednesday. Just want to get that out of the way so that you guys know when we'll be going live next week. The trade deadline stream will be on Thursday, so we're going to have a trade deadline preview episode of Blazers Uprise Live next Wednesday, and then the Wednesday after that is the last day before the AllStar break. So we're going to switch around the schedule a little bit, but on tap for today, we're going to talk about the Joe Cronin article. There was an interview that NBA.com did with Joe Cronin. We're going to talk about if it means anything. We're going to talk about if we should read into it. And we're also going to talk trades. And we're going to start things off with picks against the spread. Of course, that's what the stream is going to be for today. Eric, what's going on, man?
What's up? And just so everyone knows, everything Tori just said, subject to change via any kind of trade that happens between now and Thursday.
Yeah. If there's a trade on Tuesday, we're going to stream on Tuesday. We'll still do Blazers Uprise Live on Wednesday, but we'll stream on Tuesday. If there's a trade on Wednesday, we'll obviously do our emergency trade stream, and maybe we'll throw like picks against the spread into that, but any emergency trade stream will be on the main channel, Blazers Uprise. So definitely be prepared. If some news breaks, be prepared for us to go live. If you want to know exactly when we go live, just follow our Twitter page at Blazers Uprise YT and turn on notifications for that Twitter page. Also, you can turn on channel notifications for both our channels. That's how you'll be able to tune in right away if we have to randomly go live. Anyway, with that being said, let's jump into picks against the spread. That rhymed. That was not on purpose. It was a tough day on Monday, Eric. Zach was the only one who went above 500. Me, Jackson, Chat, Eric, we all went 3-6. Connor went 4-5, a little bit better. Zach went 5-4. Trevin and Krish struggling. Krish still, unfortunately for him, has not gotten to 100 wins. And me and Jackson remain tied at first. Chat and Connor, you guys are now tied at third. Zach has gained a bit on Trevin. Any thoughts on this, Eric? Or you want me to move into game number one?
Man, I'm struggling lately. I need a good day today.
Yeah, you need to flip your thought process on this.
Almost back to 500 and then I had a couple offers and a 3 for 6, but got kind of screwed with the Memphis Grizzlies only winning by, I think they won by 2 or 3, and the spread was 3.5 or something in overtime, and trickle down from there.
Yep. The Sixers. Yeah, the Grizzlies were favored by 3.5. Multiple people doubled down on them on Monday, and the Sixers got a surprise win without Joel Embiid. Tyrese Maxey had a big game, so I felt like that was the easiest pick in a while, and it was wrong. So that's how it goes.
But the Grizzlies ended up losing. I don't know what happened, but yeah.
Yeah, that's how it goes with picks against the spread. So it's almost like you could just throw darts at a dartboard and you might have better luck.
The frickin' Grizzlies, I've doubled down on them twice. They've covered like every spread for 2 months except for the 2 times I've doubled down on them. It's like they're like 18-2 against the spread in the last month and a half or something, and it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it was literally probably the most favorable spread in their going their way out of the entire 2 months. It's the Sixers without Embiid, and it's the Grizzlies pretty much healthy, and they couldn't take care of business. So yeah, that was wild. The Grizzlies are your kryptonite. Anyway, let's move into game number 1. We got the Detroit Pistons taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Timberwolves are 7-point road favorites.
So the Timberwolves are without D'Angelo Russell, Leandro Balmero, and Josh Okogie. Pistons are without Cade Cunningham and Josh Jackson.
I misspelled Timberwolves in the chat poll. Don't worry about it. I was typing extremely fast. You guys know what it is. Josh Jackson, major loss for the Pistons there. So I'm going to go... Josh Jackson, major loss. I'm going with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Okay. I'm going to go Timberwolves as well.
All right.
I don't like this spread, but...
What's Krish going with?
Krish is going with the Pistons.
You said that so enthusiastically.
Trevin's going Wolves.
Cool. Let me move my mic out of the way. Zach's going Wolves.
Waiting on Connor.
Going
There's
Wolves.
Connor. And Zach is going Wolves as well.
Where's Jackson?
Jackson, I don't know if he's here.
He doesn't want to defend his tie with me for number one, apparently. So, anyway, I guess I went chat poll. Chat is loving the Timberwolves in this one, Eric. So it looks like it could be a Krish Island, but Jackson's not here, so we don't know. Let's Wavels, yeah. Let's move on to game number 2. We'll see if Jackson can return and catch up. Game number 2, you got the Spurs taking on the Heat. This is a 2013-2014 Finals rematch. Miami is a 7.5-point road favorite.
Miami gets Jimmy Butler, PJ Tucker, Kyle Lowry all back tonight and starting. But they are without Caleb Martin, Markieff Morris, Omer Yurtseven, KZ Okpala, and Victor Oladipo. For the Spurs, they're without Jakob Portal, Jock Landale, Zach Collins, Keita Bates-Diop, Doug McDermott, and a late addition DeJounte Murray out as well.
Okay.
So I messaged Jackson, but I don't know if anyone has his number or something.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Come on, mods. If you can't make the stream, just message us your picks the day before or the morning of. Or
I am going with the Heat. Krish is going Heat as well.
All right, I went Heat.
Collins has not played in an actual Spurs game yet. He has been played in several G League games.
And he's looked good.
Yeah. Connor says Spurs trap game. Does that mean you're picking the Spurs? Zach is going with the Steve's Heat. Okay.
Interesting.
Trevin Heat.
2 games in and we're already a mess. Trevin's going Heat. Connor's going Spurs. All right, Connor. Spurs. Trevin's going Heat. And I guess we'll end the chat poll. It's Heat, a little less percentage, but Heat. So it looks like it could be a Connor Island, but Jackson is not here. All right, game number 3. You got Atlanta. This game's on TNT, by the way. Atlanta is hosting Phoenix. Phoenix is a 4-point road favorite.
All right, so Phoenix is without Shamet, Cameron Payne, Frank Kaminsky, Nader, and Saric. Ayton, last I saw, was probable, so it looks like he's going to play. The Hawks are without Lou Williams, but Hunter and Trae Young, who are both questionable, are going to play. Jackson says he'll be here in a few minutes.
Okay, well, that works. I feel like whenever I pick for the Suns, they end up screwing me. I'm gonna... The Hawks won 7 games in a row, and then Trae Young was out, and that broke their winning streak, but they had won 7 in a row, so they'd been playing really well. The Suns, of course, aren't in double-digit losses yet, and the spread is pretty low.
I'm going to take the Suns. Chris is taking the Suns. Zach is taking the Suns. I don't see any other mod votes yet.
I'm going to take the Hawks.
All right. Trevin took Suns.
Alex Wolf, do you want a 5-minute ban?
Okay. I'm sure there's some sort of TikTok channel you could go to right now to get that.
Connor's going Suns? Well, this might be an island for me, so the first 3 games are potential islands depending on what Jackson goes with. I'm going to end chat poll. Chat is going Suns as well, so might be my first island in a while, it seems like. Let's move on to game number 4. You got Toronto hosting the Chicago Bulls, and Toronto's a 4-point home favorite.
So Chicago is, of course, without Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, Patrick Williams, and Derrick Jones Jr. Levine was probable. Looks like he's going to play. Raptors only have Dragic listed on their injury report.
So they got the Levine, DeRozan, Vucevic. Interesting. Okay. What's Chris going with?
Chris is going Raptors.
Cool.
The Raptors have Gary Trent, so they're unstoppable, right?
Supposedly. Yes, it's Pirtle. Yes, chat, it's Pirtle. Like a cat, yes, Pirtle. I don't know what I want to do with this game. I haven't even thought about this game yet. I'm just reading chat.
I'm going to take the Bulls and the points.
All right.
Connor took the Bulls.
This is a tough one, man. This is actually really tough.
Waiting for Zach, Trevin. You guys picking?
I'm gonna do a little bit of research.
All right.
For like 15 seconds.
Instead of arguing about how to pronounce Pirtle.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, does that mean you're picking Toronto or what? Because I'm writing that down as your pick. Trevin, Toronto.
Does that go Toronto?
I guess. I mean, they can't just put what team they're picking. They have to like make it kind of vague. So, yeah, he's going Toronto.
Telling me Toronto. I mean, honestly, at this point, if you guys say something vague, that's gonna be your team.
But Zach, he'll then change it and be like, "Oh, never mind," or message retracted.
So that means I'm going with the other team. My gut is telling me Toronto, so I'm going with the Bulls.
Yes, but my heart is saying Bulls, so I'll take them.
And my feet are saying push. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I want to go with.
It's only vague because you just said it, Zach.
So, this is just gross. I'm going to end the chat poll. Chat right now, 51% Raptors. So, chat also thinks it's a hard game to pick. I think I'm going to go with the Bulls.
Chat, 51%.
Could be a split vote, and honestly, you can't even really tell because these colors are the same. Anyway, let's move.
Is this hard for you without Jackson here to know?
I wasn't going to base this off Jackson at all. I honestly can't make up my mind on this game. I'm not confident in this pick at all. Game number 5, we got Golden State, Sacramento.
Speaking of Jackson.
Just bombed that test, but I'm here. Yep, this is what matters, Jackson. Good job. Golden State's a 14-point home favorite.
All right. And that is because the Kings are without Marvin Bagley, Terrence Davis, and probably De'Aaron Fox. He was ruled out and then changed to questionable a little bit ago, but it doesn't look like he's going to play. He could end up playing because it's a later game, so we don't know right now. The Kings are also on a back-to-back. Warriors without Wiseman, Draymond, Bielitsa, Iggy, and Otto Porter Jr. all out. Yeah, Draymond's out. Chris is going with the Kings. Yeah, I'm going to take the points here as well. 14 is just too much.
Chat, there's your poll. Yes, I'm tied with Jackson. As you can see by the slideshow in the middle. That I don't even know if any of you guys ever pay attention to. Jackson goes Kings. Jackson, sure. Give us your picks for the first 4 games, too.
Trevin says Warriors.
Trevin, Warriors, cool. Zach's going Warriors.
You can't just put Warriors and then later explain your pick.
Honestly, you didn't even have to type out the my pick is Golden State if that wasn't clear. After you make your opinion, just say Warriors. You say Warriors got this, but only because the Kings don't have Bagley. Warriors. In the next comment.
Or just put Warriors, and then later you can explain why you made your pick. You don't have to do it with your pick. Or you can say pick.
Warriors, and then say, I think the Warriors got this, but only because the Kings don't have Bagley.
Connor's going Kings.
Yeah. Cool.
So that leaves the chat poll.
Chat's really close. Chat, 33% of the vote. 52% have gone Kings.
So... You would think after having to count it prior to the poll being an option that Zach would be the most clear on stuff because he had to deal with trying to count all the votes that were kind of weird. Or
now he doesn't have enough to do, so he gets sidetracked. Zach and Trevin go Warriors. Everybody else goes Kings. Final game. We got the Battle of LA, Eric, and both teams are below 500. You love to see it. Remember when both these teams were supposed to run away with the West? Oh, man, how they have fallen. But we have somebody returning tonight. Before we get to that, the Clippers are 3.5-point home favorites. This game is on TNT.
Who's returning?
Paul George.
What?
Right? I saw... Did you not see that tweet?
The tweet by Ballsack Sports?
Was it? Did I just get
You
sacked?
got Ballsack? Oh, no. Man. Sorry, no.
I didn't pay attention to who said it. Oh, that sucks.
He's out for the year, dude.
Is he out for the year? I thought he was...
Well, they said he's out for several months, but they're pretty much just going to keep him out for the year. I can't believe you got Ballsack.
No. I didn't read a Ballsack Sports tweet. I read a Lane Richardson NBA
who quoted Ballsack Sports. Dude,
no.
I can't.
Well, I mean, even Fox News got Ballsack Sports.
Yeah.
Duh. So.
All right.
Is he really out for the year?
Yeah, he had the option of getting surgery or not, but they decided to not do the surgery and rest it, but they're going to rest it for several months or something. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
This game is already in L, and I haven't even picked yet.
They pretty much announced that they don't give a crap about the rest of the year, and they pretty much moved on past the season. So, yeah. It's really funny. Lakers, by the way, are without Kendrick Nunn, and LeBron is doubtful. Malik Monk, Anthony Davis probable, and for the Clippers they are without Paul George, even though Ballsack says they aren't. And then Kawhi is out too, along with some people like
Kawhi's out too.
Jay Scrub and Preston are also out, but they don't really matter.
Wow, that's rude.
Chris is taking the Clippers. Man, at first I didn't know if you were joking or not. That was funny.
I'm gonna make this stream private. right after. It'll already be clipped by then. Can you guys start clipping like funny moments so that I can put them in videos where it's like a compilation instead of just moments where we look bad? Please. Maybe moments where we look good. You could clip those. But no, it's just when we look bad. It's when Eric talks about his Lakers, and it's when... I mean, actually, you know what? Your Laker voice last night might have been a good thing. Yeah. I don't know how you'd categorize that, right? But that got clipped, right? And then me getting ball sack gets clipped, man.
Connor's going Clippers.
Our freaking mods.
Zach and I are going Lakers.
Of course you are.
Yeah. Derrick Jones Jr. That's so horrible.
Well, that was funny. See, that sounded clippable because that was funny, and your voice was funny, so that's clippable too. Because I would put that in a compilation. But yeah, I'm not trying to push the agenda that I am doing. I am streaming with a Lakers fan because I would never. Oh, where's the chat poll? Oh yeah, good.
You got ball sack and then you don't put a chat poll, man.
Why don't you put the chat poll, Eric?
I can't.
Exactly.
Oh, what a flex, dude.
I should just put LA as both chat options. All right, chat. There's your freaking poll.
No, normally I can't stand things like ball sack sports, but they're so good at it.
They're so funny, and you just know.
They fool so many people. It's like it makes it kind of like respectable that they're. I mean, a couple of them lately they've gotten a little out of control, but they're like their quotes are just believable enough to fool people, you know.
Yeah, but like if you know the account, you know, it's not like they're a fake shams account or something. You know what I mean? So like. I enjoy it when it's something that you like know if you see it, but then like I mean I got trolled today, but I should know better than that. I just wasn't like early in the day. I won't go on Twitter like I'll go on Twitter later in the day. Later in the day, dude, I'll just be sitting on Twitter or I'll be working and waiting for an order because I deliver food. LMAO. And I'll just be sitting in my car waiting for an order to pop through the phone, and I'll just be on Twitter, and I'll get locked into Twitter. Early in the day, I'm just skimming that in, oh, Paul George returning today. Okay, cool. That's how it is. So that's what happened today.
Trevin took the Clippers. Who are you going with, Tori?
LA.
All right, cool. Jackson took the Lakers.
Did Jackson give his picks for the first 4 game yet?
He took the Wolves. I'm waiting for the rest.
All right. Chris Island.
And now he message retracted, I guess.
Well, he already took the Wolves. I'm going with the... I mean, it's like Anthony Davis, but then Russell Westbrook cancels him out. So it's really just Malik Monk versus Reggie Jackson. I'm taking Malik Monk.
Jackson, I see you. Message retracted. Are you?
Automatic forfeit.
Are you gonna give us our picks? West reserves.
I wanted to do a stream where we picked the West AllStar reserves. I didn't realize they were going to announce them this fast. Oh well. Rip.
Booker, Doncic, Gobert, Green, Mitchell, Chris Paul, Cat.
I have no problem with that. Who's the snub there?
Trying to think. No, Anthony Davis. Oh my god.
Serge Ibaka. I mean, Anthony Davis missed too much time.
I know.
Who's the snub there, Zach?
Are you gonna end Chapel? And Jackson, are you gonna make your
Oh,
picks?
yeah. It's
Or?
51% Lakers. Jackson, hurry up and make your picks, and then we'll hop on to double downs. I'm going to turn on TNT, obviously no audio, and I will announce the East, or have they already announced the East? I don't know. We'll see. I forgot they were doing that, because I would have just announced them live.
Tori, we're gonna have to have a chat poll for the double down because 2 teams tied with 83%.
Okay. Which teams are there?
The Timberwolves -7 and Heat -7.5.
Okay. Double down. Let me mute my mic. Minnesota -7 versus who?
Pistons.
And then Heat -7.5 versus who?
Spurs.
Spurs, yeah.
DeJounte Murray didn't make it. Anthony Edwards didn't make it.
Alright, there's your double down chat poll. T-Wolves, Heat, Suns, Bulls. Alright. T-Wolves, we're going Heat, so this is a Krish Island Heat. So this is going to be a Connor Island. He said Suns, so this is going to be my island. Let's go. And then he said, what was the fourth team? Bulls. Okay, so split vote. Cool. Good picks, Jackson. All right. Cool. Double down time. I don't know who I want to go with.
Krish is going Kings.
Yeah, Krish Kings. I am gonna go. I'm gonna go with the Heat.
I'm gonna go Suns. Against your island.
That's a bold move.
Yep, islands usually win, right?
Yep.
Unless you're Krish.
Facts. Yeah. Well, he overdoes the islands, man. He's just an island boy.
Zach is going double down on his most hated team.
Who's that?
The Warriors.
I was thinking the Lakers because he had him as an 8th seed.
He's becoming a Warriors fanboy lately.
Don't double down on the same team as me, Jackson. Actually, you can. Don't let my double down affect your pick at all. You don't need a repeat. But you did copy all my picks. Tisk tisk. He says, I hate the thing you just did, Tori. Well, you can hate it. I love that you hate it. Come on, mods. It's taking too long. We're still waiting. Oh, Connor went Spurs. Okay. Connor went Spurs. I'm going to end the chat poll. Chat ended up going with the Spurs. Very close, 53%.
The Heat, you mean?
Oh, the Heat. Yeah. Why did I say the Spurs? Yeah, the Heat. So Connor's doubling down on his island.
Against you and Chet.
Yeah. Interesting. Pretty bold. Jackson's team. Okay. I respect it, Jackson. I respect it, which means we're all going to freaking lose.
Well, Connor wins in that scenario.
Yeah. Connor, have fun catching up to us. And then Trevin
doubled down on the Suns. Yeah.
Why is Smog saying I'm off my game today? I think I'm on top of my game. Oh, sorry, Greg Martin. Why is Greg Martin saying I'm off my game today? Anyway, that's Picks Against the Spread. Thank you for participating. We'll see how this goes today. So, who are the... Let's just do this first. Who are the snubs for the West? Because I feel like there's a name I'm forgetting.
I just listed them all.
The snubs?
Yeah.
I was not paying
DeJounte Murray, the biggest one, probably.
Oh, I thought you were saying he was, I thought you were talking about how he was out.
DeJounte Murray, the biggest snub, probably. Anthony Edwards, Anthony Davis, and then a second Memphis player, maybe. But, yeah, not too bad on the snubs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like a Dame Lillard type of snub.
Yeah.
So I'll see if I can,
Congratulations for Booker making his actual first All-Star game as a non-injury replacement.
His actual first legit All-Star game.
Russell Westbrook, the biggest snub.
Yeah, as if. Yeah, I will, I have the TNT stream going right now, so if they start announcing the East, I will kind of announce it live for you guys.
Tony Snell, good one.
Yeah, Tony Snell's a snub. THT a snub. So don't spoil it in chat. Don't spoil the East. Because they announce the West first usually, right?
I don't know. They have a specific order, but yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen a tweet about the West, so... yeah, because they're announcing them tonight. So, but first, I mean, I think we got some time. Joe Cronin talked today. There was an article. It was a Q&A. There was some...
It was with Mark Medina, who is technically an NBA.com, but he does a lot of Lakers-specific stuff.
Yeah, and I read the article. There wasn't anything to read too much into, but people are reading into it. Mm-hmm. I don't know where you want to start, because obviously there's a lot of things said, but the quote that people are kind of running with is, let me find it. It was the one with the appetite, the appetite quote.
Yeah. Let me find that. So he was asked, are you guys aren't looking into thinking now is the time to do an overhaul or reset for the long term? He says, we're looking at all different scenarios. Reset is a big word. We're too competitive to want to do that. So it depends on what you mean by reset. And then the question was asked, reset meaning long-term rebuild. And he said, no, I don't think we have the appetite to tear it down all the way. We have too many good players and too many ways to get better without taking too big of a step back.
Yeah, so, I mean, tear it down all the way. What does that mean? It doesn't, that's... A lot of the quotes in this article were like that, where it was kind of ambiguous. Okay, not only were the quotes ambiguous, but a GM isn't going to, reveal his plans. So even if he did say something a little bit more concrete, you don't know if he's telling the truth or not.
Well,
all right, here are the East reserves. Okay. All right, I'm just going to list them off, and then we'll get back to this conversation. Jimmy Butler, no surprise there. Oh, that's it. And now they're back to talking to Draymond. Okay, TNT.
TNT stripping. While you're doing that, so the other thing, it kind of confirmed, if you believe the quick article about CJ Nurk and stuff. So he has a quote in there saying, he's saying, together we've won a lot of games. Nurk is entering his prime. Dame and CJ are in their primes. Those are three high-level players. When we put the right pieces around them, we've shown that we can be very competitive.
Yep. Darius Garland's an all-star.
Nice.
That was a prediction I had before the year, he could make an all-star game this year. I'm happy. That's cool. They keep going back to Draymond for everyone. So I'm just going to insert them in here, I guess, if you want. Or, I don't know, we can talk about them after. I like kind of talking about it a lot. But I thought they would list them off all in one, and they're like... Oh, Darius Garland's an all-star. Draymond, what do you think? Draymond's just in a suit right now. So, congrats to him. But, yeah, basically, my whole takeaway is there isn't much to take away. And too many fans are taking away too much from this article. And too much from the Jason Quick article. It's not something that you can take away a lot from. GMs aren't going to reveal their plans. He's talking ambiguously for a reason, right? Like, what does a full teardown mean?
Mm-hmm.
That could mean trading Dame. So, yeah, we don't have the appetite for a full teardown. Yeah, we don't have the appetite to trade Dame, but we might trade CJ, right? So,
And the team being good enough to, moving forward, to not do a full rebuild could mean Dame and Ant still. That's very likely that's the possibility.
Yeah, so not too much to read into it, but it seems like a lot of fans that are, like, very worried just saw that article and now are extremely worried, and it's like, just chill, we don't know. And you're not going to be able to figure out a GM's plans for the deadline based off an NBA.com article.
Yeah. So, to me, it's crystal clear. You have to trade at least one of Norm and CJ. One of those two better not be on this roster in a week, because I know we could trade him in the offseason, blah, blah, blah. There's just too many teams that are looking for a guard. There's too many rumors, like the Pelicans one again today, said they are going hard after either CJ or De'Aaron Fox. And they don't really have...
Or Eric Gordon.
Or Eric Gordon, yeah, which doesn't make sense. The Pelicans are the answer to solving this equation and getting another star around Dame. And I said this last night, for anyone who doesn't hear, I would challenge anyone to come up with a better way of getting a star for CJ than to go the route of trading him for picks, creating a huge trade exception, and using that trade exception and all these picks we acquire, plus our own top 10 pick, possibly even higher than top 10-ish if we tank right the rest of the season, to get whatever player we want around Dame and Ant and that kind of stuff moving forward. So if you can come up with a better way, hats off to you, but we have to use the fact that CJ McCollum is wanted by them, and they just happen to be the team that has a huge trade exception and the far enough under the tax to where they can take a player into that trade exception and still not go into the luxury tax. We have to use those assets to our advantage. So you make them give up at least 2 firsts and take on a salary in a Robert Covington trade to another team. I don't want to hear it. I'm getting kind of worried that Cronin's going to have once I got in this, like, I realized how hard it was to make trades and I tried, that kind of attitude. I don't want to hear that crap. If I hear any of that stuff, Cronin should be fired immediately next Thursday, right? He's not good enough to be in this position if he cannot make anything work by trading Norm or CJ. I think he should trade both of them, but he has to trade at least one of them. And he cannot use the excuse that it takes 2 teams to tango, that kind of stuff, because there's way too much interest in those 2 guys. There's way too many teams that need a player like that, like a Norman Powell who's on a decent contract, stuff like that, there's no excuses to not get a deal done with them. And then Rocco is an expiring contract. You have to trade him. And you have to get under the tax as well. So if he doesn't get under the tax, unless it's for some reason we get like a bunch of star players and that kind of stuff and stay in the tax because we got so much better, then that's one thing. But if he doesn't get under the tax and trade Norm or CJ, he's absolutely failed in his job, and he cannot handle this position and should not be the GM moving forward.
Yep. I have my official prediction for the move that we make. Okay, I am going to pull up the trade machine. I don't think you're gonna like this, Eric. Where's the trade machine window capture? There we go. I wouldn't really like this either, but you're gonna probably know where it is, like what it is, once I put the 3 teams in here. Oh, that's a little too much salary for them. They need to trade out a minimum. Okay. This is my official trade deadline prediction. It could be somebody else than Garza, but this is my official trade deadline prediction.
Yeah. Awesome.
How would you feel about this?
I'd be kind of mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just...
I mean, it's not like the worst trade ever, but yeah. I mean, Norm and Rocco for Grant. I mean, and a first. That's, yeah.
I mean, we would technically not be losing a first since we'd get our 2022 first back and then make it our 2023. So it would technically be Norm and Rocco for Jeremy Grant, but and like maybe the Bulls get like our second round pick, you know. I don't know. But I feel like this is what they're going to do because it puts him under the tax, right? And he'll sit there saying we would get a $12.9 million TPE because Norman Powell matches Jeremy Grant. If we're under the tax, we can take back $5 million more. So Jeremy Grant is matched by Norman Powell. So we'd be sitting here saying, you know, we got Jeremy Grant. We didn't have to give a first. We got a $12.9 million traded player exception.
Why would we not just move our first to them? Because it's lottery protected the same way. So,
I mean, like if we're in the lottery, yeah. I mean, like these. I guess that's probably an easier way to illustrate it. So, you know, like whatever. I don't like how deep the protections are on that. You know.
Yeah. We'll make
so like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is my official trade deadline prediction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that. And it's just like we don't have enough assets after that to add somebody good enough to take this team to contention. I don't think this is a contender. I don't think Dame, like, you still have CJ, I guess, and you can use CJ in a trade for something and try and get assets that way. It's just like, I don't think you're going to get enough assets for CJ or be able to get a good enough player for CJ in order to get an all-star caliber guy. Mm-hmm. And Jeremy Grant, I don't think, is an all-star caliber guy. So by doing this trade, you're basically guaranteeing that you're not going to get an all-star caliber player next to Dame, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It caps your ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
We need to raise the ceiling. And that's what Joe Cronin talked about in his introductory press conference. We need to raise the ceiling. I would much rather try and get our first back for Rocco and a first and an early second for Norm, because then if you trade CJ for first, all of a sudden you have 6 first-round picks, Nasir Little, and maybe some matching salary to like try and go after a Jaylen Brown or a Siakam, right? And that gives you a chance. But if you have Jeremy Grant, I don't see how you have a chance to get Jaylen Brown or Pascal Siakam in the offseason. I mean, maybe Boston wants Jeremy Grant, and you can take whatever you get for CJ and attach it to Jeremy Grant, and maybe they would really willing to trade Jaylen Brown for him. But if they really want Jeremy Grant, why don't they just go get him right now?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the issue I have with this sort of trade. Like, in terms of asset value, it's not necessarily terrible or bad.
Yeah.
But it's long-term. How are we going to get this team to contention? And this is like I would rather take a longer path that ends in the land of contention than try and take a shorter path that ends short.
Yeah. See, this is where I question how this is better than the CJ to New Orleans trade, where we would get a trade exception, could then trade Norman and one of the first we get in that trade for Jeremy Grant, I guess, and we'd still have a first from CJ, Josh Hart, and a young player maybe like Troy Murphy, and get Jeremy Grant too. So, like, I don't understand how doing something like this is better than that. I don't like it.
What do you think of it as a prediction, though?
I mean, as a prediction, it's probably pretty close. I mean, I could definitely see this, or like a similar type trade for, like a a Miles Turner type, because Turner, I think, is still an option for us versus other teams because of him being out doesn't affect us really. Like, we don't really care about this year. We're thinking more next year, So that's the exact type of player who is out for, a few more weeks still, but so that would help the tank this year, but would help us next year. But yeah, I don't, as a prediction, I think that's pretty good. I'm just going to be upset if we don't get as many assets as possible. And then we'd have extra assets and Jeremy Grant possibly if we did it another way,
Oh, I'm muted. My bad. I was muted. Yeah, here comes all the chat. I caught myself before I read your chats, chat. What I was saying is, I am as confident, maybe more confident in this prediction than I was last year when I predicted the Blazers were going to trade Rodney Hood and Gary Trent Jr. for Norman Powell. And that came true. So, I'll tweet that out. That is my prediction. And I think Cronin might... I have a gut feeling he's going to be looking at it like, Dame, CJ, and Ant is a phenomenal three-guard rotation. And then we get the power forward we need in Jeremy Grant, and we're going to re-sign Nurkic, and Nas is going to be our starting three next year, and that's the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think that team is good enough. I would much rather trade players for picks and then sit there on draft lottery night like, oh, we got the 7th worst record. Hopefully we can get a top 3 pick because then we can take somebody who might be just as good as Jeremy Grant year 1 and Jabari Smith.
And the top 3 picks are all power forwards, which is what position Jeremy Grant plays, yeah.
And then you still have a bunch of extra picks. Right? And you have a young guy who might be just as good as Jeremy Grant year 1 and long-term is going to be better. And then you have, whatever picks you get back for CJ, whatever picks you get back for Norm. If you maybe trade Larry Nance Jr., you get a first-round pick back for him. All of a sudden, you have a ton of assets instead of just going all in on Jeremy Grant. So I will be pissed if that's the trade.
And like as Chris Brandlin says, then you pay Ant $20 million plus to come off the bench.
Yeah. Just know I'll be raging if that's the trade. I'll be raging because it's yeah. I mean, but he said in the article, Cronin said in the article, like, sometimes you have to take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody wants to win, but sometimes you have to make moves that help you win in the long term, basically, is what he was saying.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that this isn't the case where he's trying to go do this, but, I mean, it's you hear Detroit wanted Norman Powell in the offseason, and Detroit might trade Jeremy Grant for Norman Powell straight up, right? And then the Bulls are interested in Robert Covington, and they have Portland's first-round pick, which looks like it's not going to convey to them. And, they need... Derrick Jones Jr. is out for 8 weeks. So, all the rumors make sense with this sort of trade. So, if the Pistons are considering trading Jeremy Grant for Norman Powell straight up, if they get a first-round pick, too, then I feel like that puts them over the edge. And if you're the Bulls, I feel like getting back Portland's second just to give up their first-round pick and Derrick Jones Jr. gets you over the edge for Rocco.
Yeah, the only thing I've heard is that the Bulls desperately want Jeremy Grant too, so maybe they don't help us get him. And that's the only solace I have in hoping that this doesn't work out.
If they're not going to get him, here's what it's going to come down to for the Pistons and the Bulls in regards to that. I think the Pistons are going to hold out for Patrick Williams.
Yeah.
The Pistons are just weird because they're on a rebuilding timeline but value veterans more than rebuilding teams should.
Yeah.
So, but, I mean, go ahead.
The Bulls could, give them that same first round pick and give them Kobe White and Troy Brown and Derrick Jones or something. It's basically the same trade depending on how you value Norm versus those two.
But that's my point, is like the Pistons seem to really value Norm for some reason.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, like, if it's not this, Eric, it'll be like something similar where it's like Minnesota trades Prince or whatever to the Pistons and they get Rocco, and then the Pistons have to like make up the salary, so then they trade like Josh Jackson to the Blazers, and it's something like this.
Yeah, I don't. From what it sounds like, the Timberwolves do not want to trade any of their pieces individually like that. They're trying to get a max contract type guy. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, this would be if they strike out. But I'm not, Eric. I'm not saying like
I know,
just
no, I
the
know.
Timberwolves. I'm just saying like it could be a team in this spot, like with this type of trade.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like the template thing that we've talked about.
So, Tori, did you see the Gary Trent quote? Nick Nurse, Gary Trent quote?
Yes. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. This seems like a good place to do it because I want to reiterate why. One, this kind of explains everything we're talking about Stotts and what we were hoping that Billups would do, and also it kind of reaffirms that Norm might be the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, so this is an interview with Nick Nurse. It says, quote, "We were just sitting on the side talking. I said, this is how we do it. This is what we're going to do." And he kind of said, he being Trent, "You want me to do all of that and score as well?" Nurse recalled. I said, "Yeah, we want you to play that hard and still score." Trent seemed perplexed by the idea. And Nurse recalled Trent saying, "That's a lot of work, man." And Nurse says, I said, "Yeah, it is, man." And so then the article goes on to say that two-way assertiveness has been the Toronto's calling card under Nurse. He believes that high-energy, hard-nosed defense translates into improved offense at the other end. It's why Toronto's roster is full of versatile players. And part of the reason the Raptors were so willing to move on from Powell, whose defense never quite fit right under Nurse's philosophy.
I didn't see that part.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Norman Powell, when he got traded to Portland, played better defense initially for Portland than Gary Trent Jr. had that entire season.
Mm-hmm.
In the bubble, Gary Trent Jr. played really good defensively. Okay? Yeah. And then the following season, he gets a bigger role, gets more offensive responsibility, and was basically phoning it in on defense. Phoning it in. Okay? And he was a bad defender. He was a bad defender for Portland. He was starting at the 2. We had Derrick Jones Jr. at the 3, Rocco at the 4, right? Our defense was still terrible.
Mm-hmm.
He was not good defensively for us. And it's like that quote is like he was perplexed by the idea of playing hard on both ends of the floor. I mean, you can't have it both ways where like, oh, Olshey screwed up by trading Trent for Powell. That's a terrible trade. But then Stotts is a great coach because it was a fine trade because Trent wasn't bringing it defensively and didn't look like a good defender. So at the time, that trade made sense because Powell was a better defender at the time. And Powell's still a more efficient offensive player, a better offensive player, to be quite honest. It's either that or, well, Trent was a better piece, but Stotts wasn't getting the most out of him. He wasn't holding him accountable enough in terms of him being a two-way player.
Mm-hmm. It's
either on Olshey or on Stotts in regards to the Trent situation last year. And that's what this quote confirms to me.
And also, I mean, we obviously didn't know if we wanted to keep another guard with... I mean, they could have recognized that Ant was ready to break out at some point and that having 4 guards, but it doesn't also make sense to trade for another guard. So part of that, I guess, is on Olshey as well. But if that was the best value for him, I think it's still better than losing him for nothing. And we were able to re-sign Norm at a what I think is a better contract. But yeah,
Yeah. Bro, like, oh, God. How in the world, I'm gonna get ranting, Eric. How in the world is Gary Trent Jr. better than Norman Powell offensively? What does Gary Trent Jr. do better than Norman Powell? What does he do better than Norman Powell? Somebody please tell me. If it's shooting the three ball, Norm's shooting a higher percentage. If it's attacking the rim, I mean, that's obvious, Norm's better. Shooting from two, Norm's better. Getting to the free throw line, Norm's better. Passing, Trent doesn't pass. Norman doesn't pass either. Neither of them pass.
Powell still averages more assists.
Yeah, which is saying something, because Norm doesn't really pass. Like, Norm doesn't look to feed teammates, and he still averages more assists. I mean, in what way is Gary Trent Jr. a better offensive player? People have just become prisoner of the moment, and there's a lot of recency bias, like, oh my god, Trent is showing that he's a star with these 5 games. Or, I've seen some ridiculous stuff. It's a 5-game stretch where he's just shooting a bunch of shots. He's still not creating for teammates. He's still having games where, like, he's shooting, like, he'll have a game where he's, like, 10 for 22 and have a bunch of points, but it's still not necessarily efficient. Like, what does he do better than Norman Powell? Please, Charlie, tell me.
Norm has, like, a 5% better true shooting percentage, which means he's way more efficient.
Yeah. So I like people will come in here and say that. Well, give me the reasoning, please, because Charlie said Trent is better than Powell offensively, in my opinion. I want to know why you think that, because it doesn't, like, statistically it doesn't hold weight. So I'm curious to see, like, because I don't know, I don't get why people think that Gary Trent Jr. is better than Norman Powell offensively. I don't understand it.
I think it's like David and Definitive One point out, it's just the age thing. It's that Trent's projection long term. But then you look at it this way. He's only under contract for another year and a half, so he could demand a max contract maybe in a year and a half the way he's playing if he continues this. And it's not that much better than Norm, and Toronto could lose him for nothing or have to pay him CJ type money for someone who does nothing other than score and I guess play defense. If you look at synergy stats, he's a terrible defender. He's about the same as Norm on the defensive end. But yeah,
but he gets steals, Eric. He chases steals like Rocco chases steals. You know what I mean? And we've tried to explain to you guys all year, just because Rocco's getting steals doesn't mean he's playing good defense. And we've showcased it in Brandt's Breakdown. The same thing applies to Gary Trent Jr. So, like, I was hoping that people, after we've broken that down with Robert Covington all year long, maybe they'd see a guy like Trent and his steal numbers and not just be like, oh, he's a great defender because look how many steals a game he's getting. But some people still do that, and I don't get it, because we've showcased why you can't just base defense off of steals. So, yeah, I mean, if it's Trent being younger, then say he's a better future asset. Don't say he's better offensively. Like, what is the reasoning for that? Still don't have any reasoning. I still have not seen one reason why Trent is better than Norm offensively.
Like Trevin points out, I didn't see many people commenting when Norm dropped 30 yesterday.
Yeah,
only when Gary Trent does.
I still have no problem with the trade at the time. I still have no problem with the trade now. And it's like, it's all these narratives, right? It's like,
Definitive One defensive rating individually is the worst possible statistic you could ever bring up. So please don't. It does not correlate between teams.
Yeah, it's basically how good the defense is with 5 players on the court. If you swap Powell and Trent, Powell's defensive rating would be better because you'd be playing next to better defenders. So that's like the cardinal sin. That's like kind of the cardinal sin in terms of trying to evaluate defense. Charlie says, looking at their stats, everything is very even. So you're still, A, not giving me a reason why you think Trent is better than Norm offensively, and B, you look at their stats and everything is even, except their efficiency. Norm is noticeably more efficient.
No, we would never bring up individual defensive rating to ever make an argument because it's a worthless stat.
Yeah.
The only time you could apply it is maybe within the framework of an individual team to see who has the highest rating on a specific team. But between team to team, it's not. There's no reason to compare stats because they're completely irrelevant to each other.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So I've never done it. I've never done it like that. I've never used that. And I don't really use defensive metrics in general because it's so noisy. It's so noisy. And here's the thing. It's like, you guys know, if you guys have watched post-game shows, that I'm not too fond of Norm. Like this year, I'm not too fond of Norm. I'm not more fond of Norm than I am of Gary Trent Jr. Like, this isn't coming from a place of bias. Yeah, I mean...
We're not talking about the future, though, Definitive One. Like, I don't understand why you're ranting about this. Like, it's not...
I don't... Like, we're saying that Norm is still a better offensive player. Somebody made the argument that Gary Trent Jr. is better offensively than Norm. That's what I'm arguing. See, like, I'll argue that, and then it's Trent is improving, Powell's at his peak. I don't know how you can't see that. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about.
And
man.
the stats are not even, efficiency-wise, it's not even close in terms of favoring Norm.
Dude, I'll bring up... Since people are trying to say the stats are even, let me just bring up the stats, because it's like...
It's not even worth it. I mean,
they still won't believe me. For some reason.
So I want to go a little slightly different way with this real quick, because Billups came in, and he said he was going to be like Nurse is saying he is, and hold people accountable on the defensive end and stuff. And this is why I thought this team was going to be better, because people like Norm would either have to conform to that or they would not get playing time or be benched. And where Billups failed was not holding the starters accountable. Now, part of that, the Dame injury was unfortunate because he could use that as an excuse for Connor. It was in the tweet, and like I said, it was part of the article that mentioned that wasn't a Nick Nurse quote about Powell. But so yeah, just read that tweet, Connor. It's in the GC. Anyways, the premise was that Billups should come in and treat everyone the same, right? And Dame gets injured, and so you can kind of use that as an excuse not to hold him accountable, or maybe he's not playing hard on defense because the thing is bugging him or whatever. And so then, like, other players, like maybe CJ, Norm, Nurk, those kind of players are like, well, why are you hard on me and you're not blaming Dame for these same things or whatever? Like, it has to be even with everyone, and you have to treat everyone the same, which is what seems to be what Nick Nurse is doing. And we've heard him get into spats with Pascal Siakam in the past and things like that, but now they seem to have a good relationship again. It's not, it's how you respond to those things. And I feel like Billups, that was his biggest mistake, was not being true to himself at the beginning, and I think we're worse off because of it. But now we see him with the young guys, hold them accountable, and that's why I want some of these guys to go. And I think we'd be much better off as a team going younger and rebuilding around Dame, hopefully coming back from that injury and being 100% healthy and playing well.
Yep, I'm going to pull my hair out. So now it's Gary Trent Jr. is a bigger body to throw at other shooting guards and small forwards, which is another narrative that I've heard a lot. And Gary Trent Jr.'s standing reach, at least it was reported at the Combine, it might have been wrong, but his standing reach is 8'2". Norman Powell's standing reach is 8'5.5". It doesn't matter how close the top of your head is to the ceiling. It matters how high can you reach to contest shots, to block shots, to rebound the ball. Right? You don't play basketball with your head. I mean, maybe if you have like a head that's, 10 feet tall, Eric, you can like swing that thing around and block shots and block passes and stuff. But, I mean, like realistically, standing reach matters more than height. And Norman Powell's standing reach is like 3.5 inches taller than Trent's. And people sit here and say Trent's the bigger body to throw against small forwards. And I don't understand, like, what is that based on? Where the top of his head is? Who cares? If Gary Trent Jr. has a longer neck than Norman Powell, it doesn't make a difference. And Norm is just as strong as Trent, too. I don't understand the narrative. It's not about where the tops of their heads are, man. That's one my pet peeve for a while,
and
is people that just use height. And
the quote by Nurse proves that last year Trent didn't think he had to play defense. He was only concerned about offense. That's directly from Trent and Nick Nurse. Like, I don't know how much clearer it could be that he was not playing defense on this team. So, like, it's a matter of he got to a situation that required him to play defense, and he's playing defense. Here, he would not have had that same problem. So, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if you're contesting a shot, what matters more, where the top of your head is or where your hand is? If you're grabbing a rebound, what matters more, where your hands are or where the top of your head is? You do not rebound with the top of your head. Anyway, that's the whole. Okay, I haven't talked about it on stream yet, Eric, and I had to get it out of my system. The whole Trent versus Norm talk as of lately, when Trent's been on this hot streak, has been extremely annoying to me.
Yeah, and I
needed to rant about this.
As much crap as we give Norman Powell on this channel, let me just read this tweet by the Portland Trailblazers earlier today. Since coming back from injury, Norman Powell is our CarMax Player of the Week, averaging 21.3 points on 52.7% from the field and 50% from three since he's been back.
Yeah, I mean, he's played decently.
But
I'm still not a fan of Norm.
But Trent's on this, like, I you know what I'm saying? Like, but everyone talks like Powell's a bum, and like Trent's like making him like the worst player in the league, and we made such a bad move or whatever.
Madden Mobile, you got to be joking with that take. I'm okay. That take makes me feel like you're trying to get me ranting about something else, and I'm just not gonna go there. That's strength, Charlie. He says, when someone backing you down, though, size might matter more than standing reach. That's strength. Strength matters.
And again, I challenge anyone to point out how our defensive woes have been because of Norman Powell or CJ McCollum or Gary Trent last year getting backed down by a bigger person and shooting over the top of them. There was maybe a handful of games over the last 2 years that you could point out that was the reason we had trouble with a certain player or not. And there is not many examples of teams or players outside of maybe Klay Thompson in his in the prime Golden State Warrior years where Trey would post up CJ or Klay would post up CJ in a playoff series or something like that. And even then, it wasn't that often. Yeah, we're not trying to defend anyone here or take sides or be apologists or anything. It's just, I mean, the trade was.
It's just narratives. That's what we're arguing. We're arguing narratives
at the time, and yeah.
Yeah, Trent is more of an undersized guard than Norm. Norm is just as strong as Trent. I don't understand how people make the argument that Trent is stronger. So, yeah. But, I mean, it's like, it's certain narratives that people want to latch on to for some reason, and it's like, Norm has a taller standing reach. Norm is just as strong. How is he more undersized? Doesn't make sense. It's that simple. It doesn't make sense.
It's funny because Charlie mentions Paul George, but, you're fooled because that game that Paul George dominated Norm Powell. He was like 1 for 6 when Norm was guarding him in the post.
Yep.
But he made like one shot, and then all of his other baskets came when Norm wasn't in the game or guarding him. But no, that was all Norm's fault, and that was the reason. Yeah.
Yep. And we talked about during that stream.
We switched like Dame and stuff onto him and CJ onto him, and we kept switching the whole freaking game, and that was the reason. Yep.
And During that stream, I remember this. I remember saying, people are just going to look at the freaking box score, and they're going to say, oh, see, Norm is too undersized to guard Paul George, yada, yada, yada. And this is because we're playing the 3-guard lineup. I knew it. Even though Norm did a great job on him defensively. That was maybe his best defensive game of the year. Held him to like 1 for 6 shooting. And I knew that people were just going to look at the freaking box score, and that was going to be their takeaway. And it's like, months later, oh, what about the Paul George game? It gets frustrating. It gets frustrating. Like, truly paying attention. Sometimes I regret truly paying attention.
For how good Trent was in the bubble, he was not good in the Lakers playoff series on either side of the floor. So to say that we put him on LeBron and it was somehow a positive in his favor was not a positive in his favor. And that was because we kept switching anyway. And that's the problem. If you're going to switch, it doesn't matter who you have at guard unless you have bigger guards. But like, if it's Trent or Powell or CJ or whatever, like, it doesn't matter, because if you switch them onto a LeBron or a Paul George or whatever, like, that's not a good for any team. So like, it's not just us in particular. Those guys can't guard any of them. Yeah.
Yep.
Wait. Paul George in 2019? You mean the series we beat the Thunder 5-1 or 4-1 in 5 games? That's that Paul George?
Paul George played pretty decently in that series and was like supposedly injured, but like he played kind of like his normal self, so I don't really understand if how the point is like positive or negative or what. Like, people just saying things without saying things, I guess. I don't know. What about Paul George in 2019? I don't get it. Al Mack, Norm is 6'3", Trent is 6'5", Norm's standing reach is 8'5.5". Trent's standing reach was reported at 8'2". He might have cheated it a little bit, but even if their standing reach is normal, then they're the same size. If their strength is equal and their standing reach is equal, they're the same size. I don't care where the top of their head is. What'd you say?
Norm has a bigger wingspan as well.
Yeah.
I think it's like 6'8" versus 6'11".
So we can play the passing lanes a little bit better. Oh my goodness. Dude, Definitive, you're like just, for some reason, you're in a mode where you're like trying to argue a bunch of things we're not saying. We're not saying that just because, I don't even know. Like, I'm just gonna move on. Anyway.
Trent himself, to Nick Nurse, did not expect to have to play defense when he was good on offense. Like, I don't understand how you could argue that Trent was giving his all on defense last year in any situation. Like, so he was terrible on defense last year for Portland. Once again, not his fault. If his coaches aren't demanding that, that was why we had the debate we had with about Terry's thoughts for since the beginning of Blazers Uprise, and Tori and I have thought that since before Blazers Uprise. Yeah.
Yep. So, dude, I think we're just getting trolled. Where, Madden Mobile, where do you see us having a chance to land Zion? Where did that come from? They're not looking to trade Zion. I don't know if that's a joke or not. I don't know, man. Definitive, I'm just talking about height. I'm just talking about height, man. Like, it doesn't, like, height doesn't matter to me. Height matters too much to people. In a section of this fan base obsesses over height only, and that's it. And that's what they think matters. And like that, they think, oh, your height determines your defense, and it's just like twisted.
So, Charlie, I have a question. Who was our small forward in that series?
What's the point he's making on 2019 Paul George?
I said Klay Thompson is the only person who backed down a smaller shooting guard. But Paul George was their small forward, and he was guarded by Mo Harkless most of that series. So I don't understand how that's him backing down a smaller person. So we had a what Mo's like 6'8" or something with long arms and super quick. So how does that prove that we got abused because of our short backcourt or playing a smaller guy at the 3 with our best defender on him?
Yeah. Sure, when I'd like Trey Murphy, I was a fan of his in the draft last year. You're not definitive. You're not coming across like an a-hole. You're just arguing some things that like we're not saying, and then like the whole part about what was like this is just my it's just like one of my pet peeves in terms of the argument. It's not necessarily you being an a-hole. It's just like I forget. It was up there, and the kind of thing that started it. But I like you know, we'll be talking about one thing, and then you'll start arguing something that we didn't say, that we never said, and then say, I don't know how you can't see that. It's like, those two things is like, that's my pet peeve is, oh, the moon, you know, it's a full moon tonight. Oh, but it's, you know, partly cloudy. How can you not see that? Like, that's kind of how it is to me. Like, don't argue as if we said something we didn't say. Like, too many people do that. It's like, when people do that in an argument, it's like, okay, A, it's almost like you're just trying to argue. B, you're not even listening to what we're actually saying. And I mean, if you're a Trent fan, that's fine. Like, just gotta remove bias from it. Like, I will never argue that height matters more than standing reach, even if it helps make my case for a player being better than another player. Like, in terms of arguments, I will never use defensive rating to gauge an individual player compared to another player on another team and their defensive rating. I will never do that, even if it helps my case, because it's a bad argument, and in actuality, I think it hurts the case, right? I will never argue that height matters more than standing reach. There are certain things that I just won't argue, even if I'm a fan of a guy. So that's kind of where I am on that. That helps me not be too biased. You know what I mean, Eric?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. Anything else you want to talk about? We kind of went off the rails here, but it's been an eventful stream.
Yeah, I want the Blazers to make their moves now, and I feel like you can set it up to do that. But yeah, I just don't want to sit here listening to excuses next Thursday.
Yeah. And as far as trades go, like, I think we've done a good enough job of illustrating what moves are possible, what moves would be like the most likeliest, and kind of the mechanics of that. I'm going to drop a CJ 5 Destinations video. I'm just going to skip the Nurkic video because honestly, I don't think he gets traded. At this point, I think he stays. And a lot of those trade packages would just be like 2-team trades straight up. You just be looking for a first for Nurkic, but there's not a lot of destinations that make sense for him. So I'm just gonna drop in the CJ video. But I mean, like, a lot of the mechanics of trades, like, if you guys have watched us enough lately, you guys should know. You know, New Orleans, their traded player exception, they could make sense for Norm or CJ. You can tack on a Rocco to a third-team trade, and then wherever you're trading CJ or Norm could also take back Derrick Jones Jr. in that type of trade. So at this point, Eric, I'm just waiting for, like, fun rumors, and there hasn't been any fun rumors the past few days, in my opinion. Right? Like, you've heard, oh, New Orleans really wants CJ or De'Aaron Fox or Eric Gordon, which the Eric Gordon part's funny, but, like, we already know they want a guard like that.
But, like,
we knew that.
This is where I'm going to be mad, though, because Sacramento, like I said, doesn't really have... I mean, they're not trading Ingram like we talked about, right? So they don't really have the pieces that Sacramento... Because Sacramento's kind of like New Orleans right now. They want a front court player to make them better now, right? And then New Orleans wants a guard to make them better, but like New Orleans doesn't really have the front court player to trade them. And then we've also heard that New Orleans is interested in Harrison Barnes, which makes no sense, and all this crap. But like, if frickin' New Orleans overpays for Eric Gordon, and we're like, just can't do anything about teams not wanting to make trades, And they give up like a first and Trey Murphy or something for Eric Gordon, and I'm gonna be mad. Like there's way too many reasons why it makes sense to not do that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm ready to be frustrated. It's just like at this point, I mean, after this video on CJ McCollum, there's not anything new to talk about, and you guys should know at this point kind of what our thoughts are on the trade deadline, what moves are possible. The only new stuff to talk about would be if there's a new rumor that pops up. I want to drop a video on like trade targets to avoid. I'm planning on doing that. So I saw Julius Randle is the new rumor. How is that a legitimate rumor? That's just one guy without sources talking about a guy that he likes, right? Like that's all that is. I mean, I could see that being the kind of out of left field thing, but I don't see how that's a legitimate rumor. But I don't want Julius Randle. That's one of the guys to avoid. More so than Jeremy Grant even. Mm-hmm. So he would be in that video. Because even Shervin, who said trade CJ for expirings, just get him off the team, wouldn't trade CJ McCollum for Julius Randle. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I'm too crazy in that. Julius Randle's not the answer at all. And anybody who thinks he's the answer, I feel like has not watched a New York Knicks game this year. Or they just tuned in for a Knicks game where like Randle randomly had a good game compared to what he's been doing this year.
And also, we have this situation where we have a guy who is playing for one of the best defensive coaches in the league, and if they move him, it'll be because he's lazy on defense. But no, Portland will magically fix that. You know what I mean? Like, we'll get him back to playing like really hard on defense, right? When the Knicks can't do it, like that makes no sense to go for guys like
can't
that, right?
Do it, so
like,
yeah.
You want the exact opposite. That's exactly our problem this year, right? Is we have guys who half-ass it on defense and do that kind of stuff, and they don't hold themselves accountable and don't play hard and don't bring it for themselves night in and night out. So we need those guys. Like this is, I'm not saying get Patrick Beverley, but we need guys with that mindset, not a reputation of being lazy on that end, right? You want the Marcus Smarts, the Josh Harts, the Patrick Beverley types that get after people on defense, not like, oh, hopefully we can turn him back to last year. Maybe he could be that defender again. Hopefully we get his mind back together, right? Like, we want to avoid at all costs anyone who has those kind of issues outside of maybe Ben Simmons, because even with his mental issues, he was still a good defender, right? So, like, maybe that's the best of both worlds, where you can maybe fix him offensively, but he brings it defensively no matter what. So, like, that would be the only person with mental issues that I would somewhat go after if it was a reasonable asking price, but we all know that's not going to happen either. But, like, yeah, so we do need to go after those kind of players. Like Aeromancer mentions, and Alex Caruso. Like, can you imagine if we somehow would have gotten him in free agency last year and had like an elite point of attack defender or something right now who gets after it and takes pride on that end, and we don't have to worry about whether he's going to be motivated to play tonight or whatever. Like, we need those kind of players. So whether those are young guys that Chauncey molds or we find some veterans that play that way, I think that's the answer. Avoid at all costs anyone who doesn't do that.
Yep. And I mean, Randall can't shoot either. He's shooting 30% on the season. Last year, 41%, but for his career, 33%. Guess what last year was for Julius Randle? An overachievement season. Yep. And he got paid. He got his extension because of last season. And then, once he got his bag, now he's lazy again, which he's been all throughout his career. And Portland is not the place for lazy defenders to go. But if he's lazy under Thibodeau, I don't understand how people think that'll work. And it's just people that just like to throw out big names. And it's frustrating, man. Like, big names, it's not 2K. Just because he has an 86 rating on 2K doesn't mean that he's a good addition to the team, because then you can start, the 83 at shooting guard and Norman Powell, right? And he's a little bit higher rated at shooting guard than small forward, and then you can play the 86 at power forward. Like, that's not how it works, and it's like some people approach it like that. It's so much more nuanced than that. The dude's a big name who is a below average shooter, ISOs like crazy at the power forward spot, and plays lazy-ass defense. The thing is, he can't play off the ball because he can't shoot. So he's worse than CJ. I just don't understand the logic, man. Mm-hmm. But, yeah. Yep. I mean, like, there's people out there that would really be, like, pissed if we turned down Julius Randle for Herb Jones. That's all you need to know. Like, anyway.
Yep. And we're not in favor of just one move. Like, all our suggestions. So, just real quick. My latest suggestion is going off the Boston rumors and getting them under the tax by sending Rocco to Boston, and them sending Jason Richardson to replace Josh Hart. If you want to bring it up real quick.
Yeah, so Portland, Boston, and who?
New Orleans.
Okay. Rocco to Boston.
CJ to New Orleans, and then a minimum like Snell to New Orleans as well, just for the roster spots. And for us to match the other three other than Satoransky in this deal, right? Josh Richardson, yes.
Yeah, so Josh Richardson goes to Portland?
No, he goes to New Orleans under their TPE.
Yeah, TPE, cool.
And we get the Sato, Hart, Trey Murphy, and 2 first package, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I gotta put Pelicans as too, because I always put the Rocco team on the left part, or on the very right part, and it was messing with me. Not the Bulls. I'm so used to clicking Bulls.
Yeah.
When I think Rocco, I just think Bulls. So yeah, Boston, you got Richardson to the Pelicans. All right. And then like whatever pick, right? So like 2 firsts.
Yeah, like 2 first. Like I just do like the Lakers 2024 and the Milwaukee 2025 or something. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter which first, as long as we get 2 of them in this deal, and then we get Aaron Nesmith as well, because he is rumored. They're rumored to be shopping him, and either him or Langford and Josh Richardson to get under the tax or whatever, or to just bring in a different contract. So this is the type of trade I would make. We get 2 young guys. We have a young shooting wing, maybe that Chauncey Billups can unlock a shooting power forward that we can maybe have some 3-and-D type future for. And then we have Hart as our third guard next year, who's a good defender and would mesh well with Dame or CJ, and could even or Dame or Ant, and can also play some small forward if we need him to. Can guard small forwards very easily. And then so then I would follow this up by also so Robert Covington, since we are under the tax now after this trade, matches Hart, Nesmith, and Trey Murphy. So we create that $20.8 million trade exception as well.
Does he really? 18.6.
Well, so Snell and Covington.
Snell plus Rocco. Yeah.
Snell
okay, cool.
plus
Yeah,
Rocco
yeah.
is 14.6.
Yeah, that matches Hart, Nesmith, Murphy for sure. Yeah.
So then we create that $20.8 million, which, like I said,
CJ minus Satoransky,
Jeremy Grant, Sabonis, Miles Turner, OG Anunoby, any of those guys all fit under that $20 million trade exception. So this offseason, we'd have 2 extra firsts. The only problem is we wouldn't get our first back, but maybe trade Nance to Chicago or something to get your first back, but that's not really part of it. So then I would trade Powell to the Cavs for Rubio and and they're like a lottery protected first this year, and maybe they're second from Houston.
Yep.
So then we have 3 additional firsts now, and we have some flexibility too because we have some picks in the future. So like maybe we can word things to maybe trade some of our own picks since we have picks in other years too that might convey. But anyways, then we then I would dump like Macklemore to whatever team offered a second round pick. So like the Nets for their 2028 second or something like that, right?
Yep.
And he's a minimum contract, so you can just trade him out. So, and then I would use Nesmith as your Macklemore replacement, right? So start Ant and Nesmith the rest of the year. And then I would, I would probably just keep Nurk unless you got a really good offer for him. And then you would run next year with, you would basically have a top 10 pick. You would have a 3 additional first-round picks, including 1 in that draft. And you would have 2 pretty high second-round picks, and a $20.8 million trade exception. And you would have all these young players that you could add to trades as well if you needed to. So you could basically call any team and offer a top 10 pick and 3 additional first-round picks and young players for basically any player you wanted to try and get in the league. So I don't understand how this is not like what everyone's option should be. Like, this is how we get better. This is how we build a team around Dame and Ant and Nas or whatever, and keep Nurkic, whatever. We still have Nance. We still have Hart. That's already 6 good rotation players without even making that trade. We add another good player in those trades, or maybe we get a couple good players with those assets. And then we have a solid rotation that's better, has a high ceiling. We have defensive guys, we have offensive guys, we have a bunch of different mixes of players. And that's not even including if a guy like Trey Murphy or Aaron Nesmith all of a sudden gets better or pops or something like that. And then we have extra assets as well. So, or we could get lucky and get a top 3 pick and get one of those game changers as well. Like there's so many things we can do around this, and I don't understand why. And then since we have 2 second round picks, you know what I might do? I might call the Thunder and say, hey, we'll give you Satoransky and take on Favors' contract for next year, and get Kendrick Williams back and get a couple second round picks out of it. And or not a couple second round picks, but give them a couple second round picks and get another quality rotational piece that's only making $2 million next year.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have options off of that. That's the thing, is we have to diversify assets, and people just see like the initial trade, and it's like, oh, that makes us worse. How is that going to, like, that's a bad move. It's big picture. Big picture, we have to position ourselves with our assets to try and go big game hunting. We are not in a position to do that. If we make a trade for Jeremy Grant, the trade that I predicted we'll make earlier in the stream, we're not going to be in a position to go big game hunting for legitimate players that we need, like a Siakam or a Jaylen Brown or whatever. But like people are like, oh, Jeremy Grant, that's a big name. Like, why wouldn't we want to go get him? Because he's not going to make us contenders, then we don't have enough assets left over to get the guys that would truly make us contenders. It's legitimately that simple. So, like I said earlier in the stream, I don't want to try and take a shortcut and end up at a dead end compared to just taking the long route that can get us to the land of contention. So, I agree with Eric. My kind of dream trade is slightly different. It would be, my dream CJ trade would be more so this route, like Wizards, and maybe you can get like, maybe you have to send our second to Washington, whatever. I mean, the seconds are negotiable, but would be something like this. Maybe take that one away, and we'll give our second to the Wizards. And they got to trade out Satoransky. I forgot about that. Satoransky to Washington. There you go. So, like, this is, like, kind of my dream trade where Washington just really wants to get off Bertans' awful contract. Look at that, $16 million a year, 4-year contract. He's been horrible, right? And they have a lot of forwards. They kind of have a lot of forwards. Apparently, they're willing to move off Rui, so you get Pelicans to take back Bertans' contract with that traded player exception, and to get off of Bertans, Washington will give up Rui. They'll get a couple second-round picks back and expiring contract. Right? Like, I could see Washington doing something like this. And then we get Rui, a good young forward, who's kind of had some issues this year, struggled personal issues, or and then conditioning issues or whatever. But, he'd be a guy I'd like long-term. A good young combo forward, and Trey Murphy, 6'9", can defend, athletic. Josh Hart, third guard, makes sense for all the reasons Eric stated. And then 2 first-round picks. This is kind of like the Nesmith trade, except instead of getting Nesmith, maybe we could get Rui. So that's basically, I agree with Eric. That's the framework of a trade we should be looking for CJ going to New Orleans. That's the type of trade we need to make. And then, we can do that Norman Powell to Cleveland follow-up trade, get more assets, tank, get a top whatever pick. Now, we'd only have a 18... Or no, we wouldn't have as big of a traded player exception in this deal, so maybe...
Well, like, I know you're trying to keep it simple, but you could rope in the Bulls, and they could send in we could get our pick back, and they could send Derrick Jones to Wizards, and they still save money in the trade.
Yeah, so like something like this. Now, the tax... Yeah, they're still under the tax, and they match, and... Yeah, everything's good. Everything's good here. So, like, Wizards still stay under the tax. They get Derrick Jones Jr., like, added on to the trade, which I'm sure they would be fine with. He's expiring anyway if they don't want him. If they want to keep him, that's a player that they might like. They don't want freaking Bertans. Nobody wants Bertans, but the Pelicans would maybe take him on into the TPE to get CJ.
Yeah, then so, like Uznae's asking, what if we tell the Pelicans to keep 1 or 2 of the picks and get Herb Jones instead. Yeah, I mean, if we can get Herb Jones, great. But I don't think that's going to happen, so we're trying to be realistic. And then maybe you don't get Trey Murphy. Maybe you have to take on, like, Jackson Hayes or something instead. But, like, this is the kind of thing. The Pelicans want CJ. They can take a player back and help us out in another trade, and this is how you do it. And it needs to be like this. We have to do something like this. If we miss out on this opportunity and the Pelicans just make some trade, or we just trade Covington straight up for someone like Josh Richardson or something, like, it's going to be such a horrible waste of a possibility we have right now with the Pelicans wanting CJ and them having the ability to take on salary. We have to take advantage of that, and I'm going to be livid if we don't.
Yeah, agreed. And like even in this 4-team trade, if Boston or if Chicago was kind of like, we don't really want to give up your first round pick back for Rocco, like, honestly, I would maybe be willing to say, okay, well, we'll flip the Milwaukee 2024 first to Chicago just so we can get our first back, and then this helps us create a bigger traded player exception. We'd actually have a $23 million traded player exception from this trade, and just toss in your second round pick, which is going to be a bad second round pick, but like whatever, and maybe another future second, and you get your first back instead of Milwaukee's first, which this first is probably going to end up being better whenever we make the playoffs anyways, because Milwaukee's going to be a good team for years to come, it seems like. So, and it helps create a TP. So even if it's something like this, I didn't mean to throw in their first round pick. I hope I just screwed that up. Anyway, yeah, so you can do creative things. That's the...
Al Mack, the report is they want a lead guard to help them win now and make the play-in game to show to Zion they're serious about winning. I mean, I don't get it either, but that's the case, and I've said this numerous times. this is how you succeed at being a GM. You take advantage of teams that are desperate situations. And that's why Cronin, going back, taking this full circle, will not come out and say, oh, yeah, we're tearing this whole thing down. We're trading CJ, we're trading Norm, we're trading Rocco, because then all these teams circle you like vultures just waiting for you to do something dumb. And this is what you want to do to the GMs that obviously are going to do something dumb. Like if Brad Stevens is going to do something dumb, you get something good from Boston. If Griffin's going to do something dumb in New Orleans, you get something good from New Orleans, and you take it and you run. So they get what they want out of it, so they think they did well in the trade, and that honestly, like, this is a weird trade where Pelican fans think that's like maybe even not even enough to give up just for CJ, what we've been talking about. So like, it seems pretty realistic that that's something that they would do. It's not, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to get Murphy in a couple first. So that's why we keep rolling back to New Orleans. You have to, this opportunity probably won't be around this summer. And so you have to do it now.
Yep. Anyway, we got to end the stream. This has been a long episode of Blazers Uprise Live. We'll be live tomorrow with the post-game show, and we can talk a little bit more trade stuff, but I don't know. At this point, I don't really know how much I want to talk about trades until something new pops off, because we've talked about everything ad nauseum. Like, everything's just kind of becoming the same at this point. You guys get the deal. Or most of you get the deal. It's just, we always end up explaining stuff because people come in that I guess haven't watched us in a while and just don't really understand where we're going with the trades like that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, shout out to Fred VanVleet. He made the All-Star game too, Eric. I didn't say that live on stream, so good for him. But yeah, that's going to wrap up this episode of Blazers Uprise Live. Thank you for making us a part of your Thursday afternoon. As I said at the start of the show, the next 2 weeks we're going to be streaming Mondays, Wednesdays instead of Mondays, Thursdays.
We're still streaming next Thursday, just at a different.
Yes, next Thursday on the main channel, Blazers Uprise. If you don't somehow know our main channel, just go and search Blazers Uprise on YouTube. You'll find it. That's where our trade deadline stream will be. That's where our post-game shows are. That's where our videos are. So definitely go and subscribe if you haven't, if somehow you just found our second channel, because these streams have been doing pretty well lately. So maybe there's people like that. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Hopefully you have a good rest of your day. Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.